Hi everybody, welcome to Big Joe's Journal. My name is Joe Tilden, I'm the host of this program. Well, this is the last week we'll be under daylight savings. As you know, next weekend, or this coming weekend rather, comes Saturday night, early Sunday morning, we turn our clocks back 1 hour. In other words, we fall back. So for those of you that are able to sleep at night, means you get an extra hour. And, excuse me, for those who work the graveyard shift, it means you're going to get an extra hour of work. Chances are you won't get paid for it, but that's the way it goes. They say, you know, you make up for it in the spring. But I know the nights when I was working the graveyard shift, usually when spring came around, I was on some other shift. So I never got that added advantage. Well, let's talk a little bit about, first of all, I want to talk about the Halloween parade that was on our sister channel, Channel 15. And it came off very well. Having the permanent camera and the roving camera, and the location at the corner of Strong's Avenue and Whale Street, I think everything worked out very well. Plus had good narration. So, you know, it's another kudos for PEGTV that they're able to bring this year's Halloween parade into your homes for those folks that couldn't make it. But a lot of people did make it. And I'm not sure the estimate of the crowd was probably 10,000, 12,000 people by the looks of it. Of course, leading the parade, Governor Scott and His Honor, Mayor Allaire. And, well, it looked like everybody was having a good time. And the sad part about the Halloween parade is that it's the last big celebration of summer. It means now we're going to, for most of us, we're going to hunker on down for the winter. And the next big coming out will be the Loyalty Day Parade at the beginning of May. Well, as I said, this is the last week. We're going to be on daylight saving time. Next weekend, we go back to what they call standard time. Now, daylight saving time came in World War II. Franklin Roosevelt instituted daylight saving time to try to take advantage of an extra hour of light. And the idea was to make it easier for people to work that extra hour, and also for folks that had victory gardens to give you more time to spend in your garden working. And I know where we lived, with our 150 to 200 chickens and rabbits and ducks and cats, dogs, we also had a victory garden. And you grew vegetables. You had to work in the garden. Excuse me. I'm in a little trouble with the vocal cords here. But you worked in the victory garden. You know, as kids, you had to weed it and stuff like that, and take care of the animals, especially the chickens. And that was an interesting time. But anyway, it came in during World War II. As a means to get an extra hour of light, so you'd have an extra hour of work. And now come November, we're going back to standard time. There has been movements on in the country to keep daylight savings time year-round, not revert back to standard time, because it creates a few problems here and there, people having to readjust their schedules and everything else. And it sort of goes with the, I guess, the gloom of November. November's a gloomy month anyway. At least I think so. And it sort of coincides with that. And we go right down to the 22nd of December. Days are getting shorter anyway, because the way the globe is turning, the heat, the sunlight is moving, of course, down to the Tropic of Capricorn, which is in the southern hemisphere. South America and Australia, New Zealand, parts of Africa, South Africa, their summer is just beginning. And beginning around the 22nd of December on our calendar, the Earth, the way the globe will be turning, as we say, the sun starts coming back north. And it lasts until June. Our days are going to start getting longer and longer and longer. And finally, June, sun starts hits the Tropic of Cancer, which is the northern reach, and then it turns around and starts going back south again. So enjoy your last week of daylight saving. The weather forecast doesn't sound that good. Supposed to have a lot of rain beginning around Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend. And of course, here in Vermont, this weekend wraps up the high school football season with the championship games that are going to be played at Rutland High School in Divisions 1, 2, 3. No, wait a minute. No, it's got another week too. These are the semifinals coming up this week. And then the finals will be the following week at Rutland. And then the north-south game will wrap it up. And that's 2 weeks down the road. Well, baseball-wise, for Red Sox fans, we've been kind of sitting on the sidelines watching this postseason go by. And it looks like the series is going to move back to Houston. The World Series is going to move back to Houston. The first 5 games of this World Series, Houston leads Washington 3-2. And the surprising thing is that the visiting team has won all 5 games. In other words, Washington won the 2 in Houston, and Houston won the 3 in Washington. So it goes back to Houston. For Game 6 anyway, Houston wins it, it's all over. Washington wins it, we go to Game 7. And baseball season comes to an end this year, the end of October. We're not going to go into November this year. But anyway you want to look at it, baseball season should probably come to an end around the first part of October. Once you get in past the 15th of October, especially in the north, if you had a series in the north, like Fenway Park last year, or Yankee Stadium, getting a little bit too cold to play baseball. And even in the playoffs, even in St. Louis, things were rather chilly. And of course, in Washington, they had to deal with damp weather, and things were a little bit chilly. The thing in Houston, they'll be indoors, so it's no problem. It'll be in an enclosed ballpark, Minute Maid Park. The big thing about Minute Maid Park, it's kind of a strange-looking ballpark, but the big thing way out in center field on top of the fence, of course, is that train. And it's carrying, as to say, a cartload full of oranges. And every time a Houston Astro hits a home run, the train starts up, it runs across the tracks, and then backs up to its starting point again, waiting for the next home run. So we will see what happens in the next couple of days. For those of you that are Notre Dame fans, what an embarrassment. Saturday night in Michigan, the Fighting Irish, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Blown out by Michigan 45-14. For Notre Dame fans, it was an embarrassment. It was a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And what it does, it knocks Notre Dame out of the national championship picture. Losing to Georgia, now getting blown out, totally blown out by Michigan, a team they should have beaten. Well, let's see what they can do the rest of the year. They probably, if they go the rest of the year and finish up 10-2, they'll go to a bowl game, but it won't be a game that means anything. But they embarrassed themselves, and I think this week, I think they're going to be working real hard this week. They've got Virginia Tech coming up next Saturday. And if they play like they played against Michigan, chalk that up to another Notre Dame loss. So be it. On the political side, this past week, the country lost a great civil rights leader and also a leading figure in Congress, Representative Elijah Cummings, who represented a low-income district in the city of Baltimore, passed away. And he was given a very large state funeral, which was his right, which he should have had for his services to his city and his state and his country. He was also one of the leaders of the possibility of an impeachment against the incumbent president. And the incumbent president, as usual, attacked the section he came from, Baltimore, calling it a slum, downplaying Representative Cummings. But I think somebody got to Trump, or maybe his wife sent condolences. Because right now, Trump is like a cornered animal. He's making all kinds of dumb decisions. Of course, he always made dumb decisions to begin with. The latest word is that he's going to sell his big hotel in Washington, where he's been making all kinds of money. Would you believe to stay overnight in that hotel in Washington was over $800? Good Lord. Boy, if you went to bed, you wouldn't want to get up. You're paying that kind of money. But one night stay, over $800. And of course, that money went into the Trump Trust Fund, which is a rather interesting thing because he doesn't want to reveal his tax returns. So you kind of wonder the state of the trust fund. But word is now that hotel, which used to be the post office building in Washington, is going up on the block. So we will see what's going to happen. In the meantime, this past Sunday evening on 60 Minutes, the CBS long-running news program, former Vice President Joe Biden and his wife Jill were interviewed. And I think I watched that interview, and I think Biden handled himself very well. And he responded to some of the accusations that the incumbent at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has thrown at him. And Biden answered him very well. He said, I have filed my tax returns for 21 years. And he turned and looked at the cameras as though he were talking to Trump face to face. And he says, what are you hiding? What are you hiding? File your tax returns, unless you're afraid of something. Well, of course, Trump is afraid of something. Afraid some more of his crooked dealings will be uncovered. Some of his other shenanigans. Just like it's questionable, who really is the 45th President of the United States? Well, we know who the figurehead is. Well, it's very, very possible the 45th president, actual president, isn't even an American citizen. It's Vladimir Putin. Not only the president of Russia, but behind the scenes president of the United States of America. And this is the tragedy of this administration. As Joe Biden said last night, and people have said all along, this country cannot afford 4 more years of the current administration. Even some of the people that started off in his administration, like General Mattis, John Bolton, who can be a loose cannon, have sort of turned against him. In fact, Bolton may be testifying before these House committees that are looking into the impeachment process. Well, right now, if the House opens up public hearings, and they're open to the public, which they should be, and Trump is impeached, which he will be, I doubt very much they're going to get a conviction in a Republican-controlled Senate. I know there are a number of Republican senators, including the horse's ass from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, who are beginning to pull away from Mr. Trump a little bit. They're beginning to have second thoughts. They're beginning to look to their own political future. Maybe it's time to abandon ship. Well, hard to say what's going to happen. But as we look to Washington right now, things are very, very discouraging. A group of Republicans led by Representative Jordan from Ohio, who was on the House Intelligence Committee, getting a group of congressmen, and they storm these closed hearings. You got to say, what in hell is going on here? This is Congress. These guys are supposed to be our leaders. And they're acting like a bunch of crazed goons. There are going to be a lot of retirements out of Congress. I think a number of people are feeling that it might be time to go. They're getting tired of being under the thumb of Trump. And private life looks very, very good to them. So much for the chaos in the nation's capital. I think the big thing that may have turned the tide somewhat is the double cross of the Kurds and the way it was handled. As I said last week, this isn't something that was spur of the moment. I think this had been planned out in secret for a long time, and not with our intelligence. I think our intelligence people were caught completely off guard on this. But I think a backdoor, if you will, arrangement between Mr. Putin and Mr. Erdogan in Turkey and our current president set up this betrayal of the Kurds. Because it came off all too smooth to be spur of the moment. First of all, Trump ordering our troops to withdraw from this safety zone on the Syrian-Turkish border. As soon as that order came out, Turkey's right there, ready to move in. And not only Turkey, but Russian troops that are in Syria, along with their Syrian allies, who we've been trying to get rid of, are right there and ready to move in. All too smooth. All too set up in advance to be a spur-of-the-moment thing. So you see a double cross like this, and you have to ask yourself, how long has this thing been planned? It certainly took a while to put it all together, to put all the pieces in there and say, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is what you do, and so forth. And apparently the key to trigger it off was Trump's call to Erdogan saying, we're pulling out, it's all yours. Then he tries to justify it by saying, hey, we're not going to spill any more American blood on the sands over there. Well, hopefully we won't. But they're leaving some troops in Syria to guard the oil fields on the excuse that ISIS may resurrect itself and make profit from those oil fields. Well, if they're that concerned, let's destroy them, blow them up, and get out of there. 200 American troops are going to guard the oil fields so somebody can make a nice big profit. Some big oil company can make a nice big profit while young Americans are over there putting their lives on the line. There's a quote in Time magazine this week, and I wish I could remember it, but you have these senior moments. It's the fact that old people make wars, and then you send your children to fight them. And that's very, very true. Time did an article last week, talked about new recruits going into the military. And they are going to be fighting a war that started before they were born. For many of these kids that are 17, 18 years old, 19 going to the military, 9/11 is history. They don't remember it. They don't remember us getting into Afghanistan, why we got in there and pushed back the Taliban. They're being asked to fight this war that should have been over years ago if we'd focused on getting Osama bin Laden and not been lied to by the Bush administration and got into Iraq and started the chaos that we've got right now. It's because of the chaos caused by the Iraq War that ISIS was born. And you say, well, who bankrolled ISIS? Well, obviously our allies in Saudi Arabia, our so-called allies. Allies who can get away with taking an American citizen and butchering them and not be held accountable. Well, it's a world that right now is in transition. And it's a world that is very, very confusing. But you know, you look to the future and you look to some of our young people and you look at the way these kids, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, have rallied in opposition to Congress's lack of imposing gun controls. Look at the rally after the assassination of all those kids in Florida. And it's continuing all across the country. We came close to one in Fairhaven. Well, these young folks are rallying. The last election, you look at the number of young people that were elected to Congress. And some of them are going to be our future leaders. And I think there's one in particular, probably after I'm dead and gone, will probably someday become the President of the United States. And that's Ms. Castro from New York. Well, if we look at the number of Democrats that are running, I honestly think that Joe Biden will be the nominee, and I think he'll serve one term. The big question with the Biden candidacy is who he picks as a running mate. And I think, as it boils down, I think he's got two very good choices. And they're both female. And one is a junior senator from California, Kamala Harris. She would bring a lot to the Democratic ticket. First of all, her gender, female. There are more female voters in this country than there are male. And surprisingly, even though they had a woman running for president, the female voters, almost 50-50, but I think it was 55-45, supported Trump. Now, why any woman would vote for Trump is beyond me, but they did. Not because they liked Trump, but because they didn't like Hillary. The 2016 election, we had two very poor choices. We couldn't have had two poorer ones. One was horrible, the other was terrible. Well, horrible got elected, and we're paying the price. Terrible is out of the picture. And you know, CBS keeps running this program called Madam Secretary, and eventually in the program she gets elected president. It's time that that program were dropped It was based on Hillary Clinton. But Hillary, for most part, is out of the picture now. And so it's time to bid farewell to Madam Secretary and say, well, that's the way it was. It didn't work out. Good program. Goodbye. Hillary, a couple of weeks ago, attacked the congresswoman from Hawaii. And I can't remember what her name is, but she's not polling. She's running for the nomination, but she's not polling that well. She's polling around 2%, which is not that good. And she may be dropping out of the picture, but you know, she would be another great candidate for vice president. I think Senator Harris is very, very capable of being president of the United States. I think she'd be a very, very good president. And I think she's very outspoken. And I think she'd restore America to a position of leadership in the world, which we have surrendered and lost because of the idiot we got there now. I think she'd be a very good running mate for Joe Biden. And I think when Biden steps down, she'd be a very, very good candidate, become the first female president of the United States. But I also think this lady from Hawaii would be equally good. As I say, she's not polling that well. Harris is polling around 8-9%. This other lady is down around 2%. But the lady from Hawaii, she's a veteran. She has served in Iraq. She has served in Afghanistan. And I like her views. When she's, been on the forum that they have, as Joe Biden says, that they're not debates, they're forums, which they are. And I like her views. Not too many people pay attention to them, but I think she's right on with a lot of common sense. And she's another one that would be a great running mate, be a great president. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, I hope not. I hope not. I think they're going to eliminate each other. They've got great ideas and they're great progressive ideas, and they certainly have energized the younger section of the party. But there's one thing that I have learned in my years, and that is nothing is free. Talk about a free education, free this and free that and free the other thing. Somewhere down the line, somebody has to pay for it. And say, well, we're going to tax the wealthy. Well, that's where trickle-down economics comes in. Because you not only set out to tax the wealthy, but somehow or another, that tax gets paid on to the middle class. And if you tax the wealthy, since they control most of the economy, you're going to see prices go up. So one way or another, the middle class is going to get hit. Now, I think we could set up a thing where you could have a form of Medicare for a vast majority of the people in this country. And I think we could do it along with improving our infrastructure if we stopped wasting money on things that don't directly concern us. And it's something we're going to have to take a look at. The country's going to have to take a look at. But we live in troubling times, my friends. Times that are challenging. But here in the United States, here in America, in all of our history, when we've had challenges, we've been up to meeting them. And we have a challenge now. It's an internal challenge. It's a challenge that concerns our government, how we're going to be governed, and our position in the world, and whether we're going to maintain our position as that light and that beacon of democracy. Well, I would urge everyone, get involved, find out what's going on, and you can demonstrate all you want, but the important place to show up, to where it's going to make the most difference, is at the ballot box. Don't forget to vote. And with that, may Almighty God in His infinite wisdom continue to bless these United States of America. God love you. Have a great week, and we'll see you all next week.